back to the Elder Law Out Loud podcast. I'm Carla Ray here with CEO and founding attorney of Family First Firm, Jeff Hotzen, and today we are talking about everybody's favorite topic, AI.
That's right.
And why AI should not be the one doing your estate plan, more specifically. Okay, so since ChatGPT has really exploded over the last few years, it has made a lot of efficiencies, I would say, within certain businesses.
Absolutely.
It's great for creating certain things and processes. Should not be doing your will or your trust.
Absolutely.
Talk about why.
So, the analogy I love to use is whenever I get on ChatGPT or Claude or any of the other things out there, that the other AI programs, if I'm asking it something that I know about already, it's right about 75% of the time. There's still about 30% that I need to fix. When I ask it about something I know nothing about, it's always perfect. It's crazy how that works. And I mean, ultimately, though, the point is like there's nuance to everything that if you're not an expert in that, you don't know that it's missing. And so, the challenge is I see that routinely with legal documents drafted by AI. So, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or anything else, and we use AI within our law firm here. I'll sometimes say I'll upload so I'm actually do like vibe coding and things like this, and I'll upload like a blank POA to use that as a template. And I'll be like, use this POA as a template to create another one. And ultimately, instead, it just kind of does its own thing and creates its own version of a power of attorney based on what I provide, but really more just what it thinks is correct. And without exception, it's never right. It's fascinating. No matter how many times I give it the right answer, it still does its own thing because I guess it wants to be unique, or I'm not really certain. Even when I tell it to follow this exactly, it doesn't do it. It's so the problem then is you have a power of attorney that is not legally sufficient, that was prepared by this. It looks great, but I know that there's not places for you to initial the superpowers. The notary block isn't correct, and the average person would have no clue.
And so the average person, if they're doing this in a pinch, either to try to save money, that's number one, or for the sake of time, because they feel like they don't have time to get in to see an attorney. They're just going to do something really quick on the internet, print it off, and it's all good. What are the real life consequences that you could face?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is that it doesn't work. And so, as an example, if you're using a power of attorney and somebody's maybe losing capacity, they say, I don't want to spend a couple $100 with a lawyer to get this in place, so instead I'm just going to do it on my own. I understand it. Save money to get free if you can, if it's good enough. The problem is it generally isn't. And so let's say then power of attorney is signed. 3 months later, you go to use it. The bank doesn't accept it, of course, because it's not valid. Your loved one no longer has the ability to sign new documents. You're in a situation where you probably have to go and spend $8,000 to $10,000 in the first few months on a guardianship case.
That's a wild consequence.
Yeah.
The guardianship process, not only time, but money and just effort.
Yeah, effort and
go
headache.
Into that.
I would say just an ungodly amount of headache.
And it's different because, we even have, and we've talked about this on the podcast, banks are really finicky when it comes to durable power of attorney documents. Even the ones that we create in our office sometimes are rejected at first glance because whoever's working that day at the bank just doesn't want the liability. They have been trained by different people, and so they're not taking those. We have to send demand letters. We can't send a demand letter based on something that was created outside of our office.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I'm happy to look at, maybe someone else has a power of attorney. I look at it and I think it's legally sufficient, drafted by an attorney, makes sense. Cool. I've sent demand letters for that. But generally speaking, what you get from AI it's not legally sufficient. I've never seen AI create a power of attorney that is in compliance with our statutes here in the state of Florida, ever.
Okay. And we know that durable power of attorney is such an important document, but it's also very specific here in Florida of the things that are included in that document. What about a simple will? Somebody says, I don't have a lot of assets. I really just want to make sure that my kids get things 50-50, and I'm going to have AI draft that.
Yeah. There's the same issue. We run into, so where I see more of the screw-ups with AI in that arena is with regards to homestead issues. Our homestead laws in Florida are very unique. We have unlimited homestead protection on our primary residence. So, you could owe $1 million to creditors, pass away with a house worth $500,000, still leave that to your children. And, the house wouldn't have to be sold. It wouldn't have to pay off creditors. You'd have unlimited homestead protection for your children. So they get a $500,000 asset and your creditors get nothing. Now, people may feel a certain way about that, but ultimately that's the law in the state of Florida. Now, that exists as long as the property is being passed to your loved ones. The proceeds of a sale is not protected. So a lot of these wills will say, I directed the homestead be sold and the proceeds be distributed to my children. Great. Now, all of a sudden, your kids are getting nothing because the creditors are taking everything that's left. So, that's a real common thing we see. We also see just incorrect witnessing blocks or notary blocks. Oftentimes, it won't have a self-proved affidavit on it, which means that when you go to probate that after you pass away, they're going to have to go find one of the witnesses and have that person sign a sworn statement in front of the county court notary. So you can't do this in front of any notary. You actually have to go to the county courthouse. And that witness has to sign a sworn statement saying that that is, in fact, a true and correct copy of the will that they witnessed. And this assumes that you can find that witness or they haven't passed away. So there's a lot of ways that it really creates problems for people who are going to ultimately have to try to enforce that will or have it, enforced through the probate process where it may not actually happen and may not be found to be valid.
In addition to people just creating documents through these different platforms, I feel like because I meet with clients all day, every day, and I know you do as well, when they're coming in, they've already asked their buddy Chat or their buddy Claude, all these questions, and they think that they're really getting legal advice from these platforms. There are obviously limitations to this, and, the person programming that AI bot didn't necessarily go to law school.
Right, of course.
Isn't going to know the nuances to the laws in each particular state. So what have you seen of people coming in and they think they already know all the answers because they got it from ChatGPT?
So where I feel like I see most frequently the people come in with ChatGPT stuff is when they're asking questions. Like they go to ChatGPT and say, what question should I ask the attorney? And now the interesting thing I find is that, so this happened to me very recently. I went through with clients, we had a consultation. I went through everything that we would do, answered all their questions and everything. Then I got an email sent to me after the fact with all the questions that they forgot to ask. They were clearly, created by AI. But when I went through them, I was like, oh, I answered this, I answered that, I answered this, I had answered all the questions already that AI had told them to ask me, which means they didn't even look at the questions. They were just like, oh, okay, Chat says I need to ask this, so I'll just send that and ask. And then I had to be like, as we discussed, this is the answer to this question. We've already known everything. So, we are answering all of the most important questions that any client should be asking us on a regular basis. Occasionally we get people trying to rewrite our documents with AI, which is fascinating to me. Like the stuff that we use is up to date. It's kind of the cream of the crop, the best of the best, truly. And yet then they want to come and modify it based on what some computer program is telling them is the right way to do it. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, I've gotten those emails from clients as well, and it's almost like it's so clear that it's from AI, and it's not the way that they would speak to you in person. There's definitely some giveaways when you get those messages. What about the privacy? Because anything that clients tell us, once they've signed on, they're truly a client, you have the protection of attorney-client privilege, right? So we're dealing with all sorts of financial questions, questions about, sensitive family issues, sensitive health issues. That's not protected when you're typing in those questions to AI.
Yeah.
So what could happen with that information?
Well, in theory, they call it large language learning model, large language learning. I forget, but the point of it is it's learning with everything you give it. And so in theory, now all of your information that you put into that has now caused it to learn more about you, and that exists out there. So in theory, somebody else could go and ask about you. And it could tell them, hey, here's what I know about this person. They have these health issues, or this is what their finances are, or whatever. If somebody wanted to do that, in theory, that's one of the major risks that exists.
And we don't deal at our firm in contested probate.
Correct. Yeah, we don't handle those
if
lawsuits.
It's going to litigation. But in a scenario like that, if somebody has told an AI platform certain things about their family, certain things about the inheritance that they expect to get. And there was a question by another family member about whether it was all done properly. Could that be subpoenaed? I mean, is that a wild,
It's a great question.
scenario?
I don't think anything's wild. I don't think anything's off the table.
Yeah,
You know,
because we've seen that,
yeah.
right? Where the history has been subpoenaed
Yeah,
for certain
sure.
things.
Yeah, your internet search history,
Yeah.
Google history, that sort of stuff. Absolutely. So I don't see why this would be any different.
Yeah. So that could be huge as far as the implications of what you're telling,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to, elder law issues, dealing with inheritance and that sort of thing.
It's true.
We help people, find paths to qualifying for long-term care Medicaid. And I find that a lot of our clients that are coming in with these sort of ChatGPT-esque questions have already gone to, that platform to ask those certain things. But Medicaid is so nuanced from state to state. So have you seen where people have gotten, bad information or...
All the time.
Yeah.
I love that people come in regularly talking about trusts. Like, hey, I think we need an irrevocable trust. I looked online and said that this would be a good option. It's like, that's a good option 5 years ago. It's not a good option now. But even then we'll have people coming in talking about strategies where they don't understand the downsides of the strategies. They'll say, oh, personal service contract, as an example, without recognizing that they're potentially creating a huge tax implication for themselves by utilizing that. Sometimes they talk about gifting and not understanding that, long-term capital gains issues are going to really negatively affect them rather than doing, different sort of planning that protects their assets and avoids taxes as well.
Okay. So we've talked about all the potential dangers and risks of using AI when it comes to legal services and getting legal advice. Where would you say that it is beneficial to our clients?
So, to the clients, that's interesting. I normally think about how I use it in business.
Yeah.
And certainly for creative things, I think it's very useful. I think anything where there's not truly a right answer is great. I think giving people things to think about, it's great at that. When you say, hey, if I'm going to hire an elder law attorney, what should I be worried about? What should I be considering? I think those are fantastic questions. I think, giving people an understanding or a foundation to ask questions, even if they're the wrong questions. I never get upset for somebody asking me a question that, is coming out of a place of ignorance. Even if, now, if you argue with me about, I can tell you this isn't accurate. Like, well, ChatGPT, I'm going to say, hey, ChatGPT can be your lawyer if that's what you want. But, I've done thousands of these cases. I know how to do it, and I know the law.
Yeah. But
ultimately, I think educated and clients are great. And I love people to come in having a little bit of foundation, understanding what they should be asking. I think that's fantastic. It helps our conversation go smoother. There's less that I'm having to explain or teach because you already have some level of understanding. I think that's wonderful. I don't think you should be using it to get the final answer on anything. I think you truly need to go to an expert, someone who deals with whatever it is day in and day out, to have them give the stamp of approval or say, ask the clarifying questions that ChatGPT may not know to ask. And it involves extreme nuance that really makes a drastic difference in what the strategy should be. But if it didn't know to ask you that and you didn't give the information, there's no way it's going to be able to get you that right answer.
Yeah. I will say that I did have a client say to us once that they found us not on Google, which is where we have the most 5-star Google reviews.
True.
Very proud of our 5-star Google reviews. Right. But they found us through ChatGPT. So they asked, who's the best elder law attorney in Central Florida area? Yeah. Yeah. So for what it's worth, in that case, we would say that Chat is right.
That's right. Well, I mean, that's the right answer for sure, obviously.
Any final thoughts? I know that you mentioned briefly, we do use it in business. We're not drafting your legal documents using AI, but there are some places where it does make for efficiencies within a workplace.
Yeah, creative marketing. One thing I'm working right now is vibe coding, a practice management software.
What does that mean?
So vibe coding is using AI to actually create applications. So you talk to AI in plain English. You say, hey, I wanted to do this. I wanted to have this feature. Here's how. You kind of give it the vibe of what you're looking for, and then it does all the coding. And so there's actually platforms that exist specifically just to allow you to AI create applications that you can use. So I'm working on one right now. I feel like the current program we use is more of a CRM than a practice management solution. And I think, if we had something that was more dedicated to practice management, it would create a lot of efficiencies within our organization. So I've been working for the past week with this AI program to create a practice management system specifically for our Medicaid team.
Okay.
And if this turns out, I'm probably going to then create it for estate planning and probate as well. Something that'll make things easier and simpler and smoother.
Okay. And we're always looking for ways to make our client experience better,
Absolutely. Yeah.
start to finish. So we know that AI is a bit of a controversial topic. So thanks for being willing to chat about it today. No pun intended.
Chat. Love it.
All right. And we hope you enjoyed this episode of Elder Law Out Loud, and we'll see you next time.